Hey everyone, big hello to you all. I'm Sergey and this is the Assistance TV YouTube channel. In this video, I'll tell you the basics of spin fishing for beginners. Just recently I had a situation in the store. I came in for some gear and a man walked in. He was already of an older age and told the seller, "I've never fished with a spinning rod before. I know that there's a pond nearby where you can catch perch. Give me something so I can catch perch." He came in with a regular spinning rod. Even with a long-range one which simply folds out with a multi-knee one, he says, "I have this spinning rod, this reel, give me something." The seller started giving him some big rough silicone baits, heavyweight cheburashkas, and he says, "I'll catch them with this." The seller says, "Perch, right?" and keeps trying to push all the gear he can onto him. I advise the guy saying, "You need this and that." So people who have never fished with a spinning rod have no idea at all. What do you use to catch pike? What do you use to catch perch? And what do you use to catch zander? That is, people just don't know, and there's nothing wrong with that. If you're a beginner, then this video is just for you. Right now you can see 3 spinning rods and tackle boxes in front of me. In the boxes I have fishing lures. First of all, let's talk about spinning. You might say, wow, 3 spinning rods. Friends, yes, because you need different spinning rods for different types of fishing. If I'm going to catch perch, we need a light spinning rod. If you're going to catch pike, you need a stiff spinning rod. If you're going to fish with lures, you also need a stiff, powerful spinning rod. Catching pike. Now I'll try to tell you all about this in as much detail as possible. Now I've assembled all 3 spinning rods. You can see that they are of different lengths and different thicknesses. This spinning rod is the lightest. This is called ultralight. It typically mainly catches small fish. But the fish can bite. Friends, I want to tell you that different fish can bite on small lures and large lures. This spinning rod is called ultralight. It's very thin, with a test of 0.5 to 5 grams, which means lures can be cast up to 5 grams. This is a very light spinning rod. Look, you see, it's like a reed. It's so light, super light. When you're fishing with it, you need to have special tackle, special reel, thin cord, because the tackle is rough. You understand? It won't pass through the guides. You won't be able to cast it. If you feel the slightest bite from a predator, you'll feel it with your finger. You're holding the spinning rod like this, and when you get a bite, you feel a thump-thump vibration in your hand. That's what you have. Here it is. This is great. This is a good rod. The second spinning rod is a light class. It has a test of up to approximately 10 grams. It's lighter, and you can use heavier lures with it. Here up to 10 grams. The test of the spinning rod, guys, is the upper limit of the test. This test is from 2 to 10 grams. The spinning rod is 10 grams. This means you can cast a 10-gram lure. And you can also cast a 30-gram lure, but 10 grams is the maximum weight that the manufacturer has specified for the spinning rod. What happens when you cast like this? Did you hear how your spinning rod won't break? Right now I'm just making a whip without a lure. That's the kind of cast, but that's kind of force you need for casts. So you'll have a lure that weighs 10 grams. Your spinning rod won't break. Plus there will be the weight of the lure. This is the maximum weight that can be handled. If you sprinkle a heavy lure here and make a light cast like this, just a little bit, it won't break either. But if you make a long cast, here is that bank, let's say with 8-gram bait, it won't break and it will be intact. This is the test, guys. Moreover, the weight, 10 grams of bait, this is already the weight of the entire bait, that is, with all the equipment together with the leash. This spinning rod has a test rating of up to 40 grams. You see, it's a thick rod, very stiff, really stiff. And you can throw anything at all. You can throw whatever you want, almost like bricks. This is a spinning rod for twitching, to twitch lures. It's stiff. Pretty much, you see it's very stiff. If those are the soft rods, then these are the stiff ones. I hope you understood something about the spinning rod's test and their sizes. Now let's talk a bit about lures. Right now you can see 2 boxes. The first box is with the lures. Here are my lures, guys. The second box is the one with the spoons, and there are a few lures there. Let's start perhaps with the most universal one. What is it? A vibrating spoon, a vibrating one. Here it is. This is what it looks like, the treble hook and the spoon. A vibrating spoon is a piece of metal like this, bent into some random shape. This is what the spoon looks like. It can be any color, it can be golden. It can be 2-colored, it can be of different weights, but in the end there will be a treble hook. You can catch pike with this spoon, but any predatory fish can bite, like pike and perch. If you have a small spoon, then you'll catch perch, and the chances of getting a bite will be higher. If you have a large spoon, then you'll catch pike, but also quite a big fish. As you can see, spoons can come in different shapes, equal weights, and equal colors. They will vibrate differently. This is a vibrating spoon. It's considered the most universal. It's an old school one. It's been around for many years, but it still catches quite well to this day. So for a beginner, this is one of the things I can recommend. Next are the lures. Lures, guys, are a very versatile and effective bait. They also come from different manufacturers. Different colors, like this natural one. Maybe this color pan is too harsh. You see, yes, it's really bright like this. The size can vary, like this tiny little lure. Also on it, the smaller the wobbler, the greater the probability of a bite of less fish, because any bait is the prey of a predator. The smaller it is, the less a predator can eat. But it's not a fact that a small bait can't catch a big fish. Even a tiny lure like this can attract a big predator, a large perch. Even a big lure can catch a pike that's twice the size of the lure. So, a little pike, about the size of a box, can go after a bait like this. A lure is a versatile bait. I'm not going to dwell on that right now. I'll tell you the basics, because there's a lot to tell about wobblers. They can be sinking, floating, or they can be suspending when they stand in the water column. This takes long. As I said, I won't get too caught up in talking about lures. For a lure, you need a good spinning rod, a stiff one, like the one I showed. A strong line, a special braid here, or fluorocarbon, some kind of leader. And the right retrieve. This is twitching, jerk retrieves. Hop, hop, hop. Twitching. Different lures have different actions. Different lures need to be animated differently. So there are lures that already have built-in action. You just reel in the reel and it already swims in a certain way. And you need to create the animation using rod movements to tempt predators. Somehow ask the lure's action to entice the predator. Now let's talk about silicone lures. This is also a very versatile lure. Right now you see a variety of different silicone lures in front of you. They also come in different shapes, in different colors. There are passive lures like this with a straight tail. There are these types of paddle tails where the tail ends like this with a small paddle. While guiding the bait, she constantly shakes her tail like this, thereby attracting fish. There are different types of crayfish, crabs, and there are larger lures like these. Perch usually bites on lures up to 2.5 inches. So this is a 2.5-inch lure and this one is 2 inches. So it's something that perch can eat. Here's a small crayfish. There are completely different types of lures. Pike, on the other hand, goes for larger lures. There are even larger sizes than this one. So you need to catch pike using the largest lures possible. There are a lot of silicone lures, right? There can be a very large number of them. And you can make a video about that too. Guys, different videos, but I want to tell you from my own experience that it's best. In the summer, active lures work well, with some kind of tail that shakes a lot. But in colder times, like in the fall, it's better to use passive lures, just with a straight tail. Like this one or this little red one, as I showed you how I will shake less. Like, you know, some kind of little worm that goes for colors. In warm weather, certain colors can work. Some bright ones, like that. But in cold weather, you need to use something. Colors like motor oil, you know, some more brownish colors, something that the fish won't be afraid of, something that will attract them. So we have a spinning rod in our hands. Where I took a spinning rod with a test up to 10 grams to show you, so to speak, all the lures on it. Here's a silicone lure. This is how it looks, guys. And now I'm going to make a cast. How to fish with silicone. You can fish with silicone using a bottom technique. In general, you can catch it from the bottom and you can also make retrieves from the top. So we make a cast. We're waiting while our lure is touching the bottom. As we do this, we watch either the line or the tip of the rod. You'll see this meaning when the line is tight, and then when it goes slack, it means the lure has touched the bottom. The bottom, you can really see it very well. Then we start doing different maneuvers, either just pulling the rod. This is how you wiggle it, or we reel in twice. Wait for it to touch the bottom twice, reel in twice, and wait for it to touch the bottom. It's done very simply. This is how the silicone lure is retrieved. If we look at the shallow water now, you'll see how it moves and how it plays along the bottom. Here's our silicone lure. We're dropping it to the bottom, and on the bottom it looks like a little worm. You see, I'm wiggling it. Both, even the white fish pays attention to it, looks at what it is, and the predator will be getting ready to attack. Unfortunately, I can't show you the predator's attack right now. Because we are in shallow water, I want to show you the pure retrieve. Silicone is a universal lure. You can fish with it in absolutely different ways. You can just make a cast. And just like that, for example, reel in without touching the bottom, or just move it steadily. Just reel it in, that's all. But the most effective retrieve, as I told you, is right on the bottom. The lure has dropped, and then either you reel it in, a pause, or just a slight dragging. This is a very effective method fishing with a silicone lure, because you can catch fish that are sitting right on the bottom. The lure is dragging along the bottom, and the fish can see it. Lure. This is a great lure for catching predators, and you can make a lot of different videos about it. Right now I'm explaining the basics for complete beginners. You can also catch both pike and perch with the lure. In this size, it's a 110 millimeter lure, and it's more suitable for pike. Guys, the lure catches fish. There are different numbers on it, indicating the depth it can reach, how deep it can dive. And what types of lures are there? Floating, sinking, or suspending? A suspending lure is when you've submerged it, meaning you cast it out, do a few turns of the reel, and the lure stays in one position underwater. So, you've submerged it by a meter, and it stays there at a depth of 1 meter. It can slowly rise or slowly sink, but it will be so slow. So it will practically hover in one spot. Look at how the lure moves. Here I'm making a cast. Here. Now operator will ask, can we see lure? Everything good. See it. This one is slowly rising. When we just do a retrieve, you see, the lure is moving. It has its own action. It has its own action, it's moving. Great. It plays great shimmering side to side. Now, look friends, we're making a cast. We cast out and can just reel it in steadily. We're reeling it in evenly, and the lure is playing right now. There's some grass, and I've got a snag, so I'm approaching the shore, and the lure is just playing. This is the first of the wirings, which can be done simply by making a uniform wiring, simply by twisting the spinning rod like a wobbler. The second type of wiring is twitching. Here again, for each wobbler there is its own twitching. Twitching is when you make jerks with the spinning rod. Here we look at the lure. Here's our little lure. I'm diving into twitching. You see, I'm twitching, and the lure is darting side to side. If with a steady retrieve it just moves and spins, then during twitching it makes these erratic jerks. These erratic jerks are, my friends, the coolest, so to speak, sides of wobblers are that you can animate them however you like. Not just uniform movements, but different kinds of movements, darting side to side. Now I'm going to attach another lure and show you how it darts. Here I've attached another lure, and now let's see how it plays underwater. Let's make a cast. Here it is. When I make jerks, you see the lure looks like an injured fish. It flips over on its back and then falls down. This is a really good lure when it does these kinds of moves. Moves that are unclear, on its back, on its belly, guys. This can simply attract a predator, even the most passive one. But for a lure like this one, for example, a two-piece lure, you need to tie a leader, not with fluorocarbon, but with a wire leader, a stiff leader. And in general, when you're fishing with lures, I recommend using a wire leader. This is a regular twist made of steel wire is the most reliable, but again, this topic is the most debatable. And this is a topic for reflection in the upcoming videos. Right now, we're just covering the basics, and now I'll tell you about the spinner, oscillating spoon. You can do the wiring very universally and in completely different ways, pike in different ways. He responds to it. On the previous fishing trip with Demon, he made a wiring with a pause. Now I'll tell you about it, and I caught a nice pike. Look guys, how the spinner plays. Let's make a cast. And this is how it moves while retrieving. These vibrations really attract predators. You see, it jerks back and forth. A steady retrieval is also very characteristic for a spinning lure. So how is it done? We take it and make a cast. Any cast, wherever we want, however we want. The lure has fallen and we slowly start to spin the rod. We spin it quite slowly. It's really good when you can feel the rhythmic movement in the rod. Now if you look at the tip of my spinning rod, you will see how it twitches evenly on the tip. Ding, 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 ding. This means that your lure has just hit the rhythm of the vibrations, And now I'm bringing it in, and the lure is, it's playing. The first type of retrieval is steady. The second type of retrieval that Diamond used during that fishing trip is really cool and effective. This is a retrieval pauses. So we cast our lure. We make a movement, then a pause for a few seconds, movement, pause for a few seconds. During this pause, Diamond had a strike, so it turns out that the pike is chasing, swimming after our bait, chasing, and during the pause, it strikes. Honestly, I have to say, it doesn't always work. Not in all bodies of water. You need to try retrieving the lure in different ways. You can fish with a lure like this if you're fishing from a boat straight down. We cast it out, gave it a little tug, shook it around. Because in winter fishing from the ice holes, that's how you fish with a lure straight down. Everyone knows this. First, two types of retrievals. The next type of wiring that I don't like is because during casting, we need to pause and wait while the spoon falls to the bottom. It is fraught with snags because it has an open T, and there, guys, you know, there is a lot of grass, garbage, and everything else, but this is good because the spoon lies on the bottom and you start the wiring from the very bottom. Now I made a cast, and you can see the snag right away. Depending on what body of water you are fishing in, what kind of bottom do you have? Maybe this retrieval from the bottom will be effective for you. Maybe not. Look and choose for yourself. Try different things. But I want to say that the spoon is what I started with. My first pikes were caught using a spoon bait. You just pull it slowly like this, and even kids can catch fish. The lure is relatively inexpensive. Anyone can buy it or even make it themselves. You just spin it and it wiggles like this in different ways. Different people fish. You need to adjust the speed of your retrieval depending on the size of your lure. Reel. What kind of fish? What weight of the lure? What depth? Where you're fishing. I know guys who fish like this. They spin it really fast, and the lure is almost skimming the surface. If you take a closer look, it spins really fast for them, and they still catch fish. There aren't any specific ones here. You know, there are a lot of tips on how to fish, how to retrieve, but the only advice I have is this. My job is to make the cast. Wait, let the lure sink to the bottom, but not touch it. And slowly start to spin it, well, about that speed. When you feel the rhythm, the vibrations of the lure in your hand, like thump, as it wobbles, it will transmit that feeling to your hand. Well then, in my experience, pike is best caught this way. There's also a type of lure called a spinner. Right now you can see it in the picture. Unfortunately, I don't have it in my fishing arsenal because it's not very effective for me. A spinner is a very simple lure, and it's really easy to catch fish with it. You make the cast. There are two options for retrieval. Either it falls onto the water. You made the cast, it fell to the bottom, and then you start the retrieval. If there's a lot of grass when the lure falls to the bottom, your spinner, and you start the retrieval, the grass gets caught and the action gets messed up. So you make the cast, count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, let's say, until it hits the bottom, the spinner, and then you start retrieving right away. You make a jerk and slowly spin it. The blade of the spinner rotates, and you just spin it smoothly and evenly without any pauses. Cast it out and just slowly spin it. This is the spinner, and it has a very simple retrieval. You can make a lot of videos about each of the lures. Friends, you can make a lot of videos. That's why. Now I told you all the basics. If you liked everything, like, subscribe and ask your questions. If I left something unsaid or said something incorrectly in your opinion, write in the comments. Let it be help for beginners. And the beginner will understand how to properly animate a particular lure and which lure is needed for which fish, because I want to tell people. But it's very convenient to cover all of this in one video. It's very difficult what kind of rod you need, what reel, what spinning rod, what to use, how to fish. By the way, I didn't tell you whether to use a line or a braid. There are also many different factors here. Our fishing line is stretchable, any kind. The cord is inextensible, and the cord can withstand the same braking force under the same load. It's much stronger. If you are fishing with silicone, the advice is definitely cord, because you don't need stretch, you don't need it. You need to feel every touch and movement of the lure on the bottom. When you're fishing with crankbaits, you also need braid because you have to twitch it, hit the crankbait well so nothing stretches when you're fishing. You can successfully fish with a spoon and regular lures.